Mold.
How can we fix that?
Foreclosure.
Help me get out.
Season 3, Episode 5, The Money Pit. What not to do when buying real estate. Welcome to Attorneys Are Human Too, Season 3, Episode 5, The Money Pit. What not to do when buying real estate. I'm Steve Wallace.
And I'm Celena Muzic.
Before we get started, I just want to, again, thank all of our listeners and our followers and all the folks. I mean, there's been an outpouring of love from all neck of the woods, and we really do appreciate it. And for those of us that really support us, we've got our merch. We've got our exclusive hoodies. You can click in the show notes, and you can order your own. We've got hoodies. We've got T-shirts. We've got mouse pads. We've got coffee mugs. Support Attorneys Are Human Too by showing us a little love.
Yeah, I think we are just being ourselves, and we really are enjoying doing this podcast. But I don't think we expected so many downloads, and thank you, everyone.
We really thank you. So now into the nitty gritty. What Celena and I do on a daily basis
is argue.
Really? I think I've mellowed in my older age, for sure. I'm still all over the place. Just a peek behind the window. So I had a bankruptcy court hearing this morning, and surprise, surprise, I forgot what the password was for our bankruptcy software. And so I think I added 1 or 2 more gray hairs on Celena by changing the password for the 10th time, even though, surprise, surprise, it's my daughter's name and her birth date.
And it's been the same password for 5 years.
I'm an acquired taste. Let's just put it that way.
I was going to this morning. I was like, why would you do that? I have to change it on all my devices now.
So in addition to bankruptcy, one of our main practice areas is real estate and all aspects of real estate closings, real estate leasing, real estate financing. Commercial. We have a title company. So we're dedicating this episode to help all of our listeners out there when they're looking to buy a property, and we'll share some of our horror stories and some things that we've seen in the many, many years that we've worked together on what not to do when you're buying real estate. And there's a famous movie, which is the title of our episode, The Money Pit. It was sometime in the mid to late 80s, And I believe it was Tom Hanks or Michael Keaton. Those two kind of blend together to me.
I was a baby.
Yeah, I'm old. I was in high school, so I wear it well, but I am an old man. So Celena, you've been involved in all aspects of real estate on the real estate sales side, the lending side, obviously the title side, and the legal side with our law firm.
Yeah.
Could you give me 1 or 2 things that people that are looking to buy a house should not do? And at the end, we'll talk about some things that you should do.
Well, do not open a new line of credit while you're in the process of getting your lending. You shouldn't do it while you're in the process or before closing. Don't open new lines of credit. Don't buy a car. I get that too. People right before closing, they say, oh, I went and I bought a car. I needed a new car. Guess what? You may not close.
Here's one thing that just spurred my mind, because you're really involved. You've been involved currently and in the past on the lending side. One of the other things that you don't want to do is quit your job. What lenders do is when you apply initially for financing, they verify your employment, and then lenders have smartened up in the modern era. And the day before the closing occurs, they call your employer one more time to verify.
Yeah.
And we've had situations where deals have blown up where somebody's like, yay, I'm buying a house, and miraculously I'm quitting a job.
Yeah.
The other thing, just our experiences that we've had when we've represented folks at closing, it seems like everybody's taking a vacation right before closing.
Oh my God, that is my pet peeve. Everyone's like, throughout the whole closing, they're like, rush, rush, rush. We have to do this. And everyone is like driving me insane. And then finally we get to the closing date. Oh no, I can't. I'm going on vacation. Really?
Yeah, really? You would think spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on a home and you've got extra money to go on vacation, it's surprising. When you're a seller, once you have a property under contract, don't spend the money before it's in your account.
Correct. Oh, you know what? Here's a good one. This happened to me recently. A buyer, they are, they have to make their escrow deposit. Of course, they didn't have the money in their account, and they pulled the good old, it was under my mattress trick to make my deposit.
Oh, wow.
And guess what? Lenders, they want to see that you had that money. That money
Right.
has to be verified. You can't just pull money from your mattress and then say, oh, yeah, I just had it. Like, where did it come from?
The magical term that I think the term of art is, it has to be sourced. They have to know where it comes from, and it has to be seasoned, which means that it has to be in the account. Different lenders have different underwriting guidelines, but generally it's at least a month that it's in the account.
Correct. And I mean, if it's a gift, then there's a process for it to be a gift too. You can't just get money from like your ex-girlfriend or, I guess your ex-girlfriend wouldn't be lending you money. But like a family friend and say, oh yeah, this is my brother. He gave it to me. Like there has to be a process. It has to be documented for the lender. So it's such a pain.
The other thing that is a pet peeve that a lot of us have is the fact that if you're selling a house in Florida, the Florida Association of Realtors has a form. It's called a seller's disclosure statement. Now, understand, depending upon who we're representing in the transaction, that will dictate whether or not we will advise the client to do it. If you're a buyer, if you're and you're our client, we absolutely want to see that. It's not required under Florida law for a seller to sign it. So based on that fact, I generally recommend that my sellers don't do that. However, there's a caveat. There's always a caveat.
What is it?
The caveat is there's a seminal case in Florida. It's called Johnson v. Davis. It's a Florida Supreme Court case where a seller was held liable for not disclosing known latent defects. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah. Explain.
I explain. So basically, if you know it and you're covering it up and you're not supposed to go. So for example, I'll give you a couple lawsuits that we filed because in the past, we used to litigate over this matter. But for my anxiety and for my mental health, I've decided I just want to stick with the transaction side versus litigating these things. But I had a case where I had a very, very pleasant professor. She actually was a professor at Miami-Dade College, and she was in Miami, and she broke up with her partner, and she moved up to Palm Beach, and she bought a condo in the same development that her parents lived in.
Okay.
And so ultimately, and this goes to our cold open, she discovered black mold throughout the entire condominium.
Ugh.
And just a preview, we are going to have in an upcoming episode, we're going to talk about condo commandos and the ensuing condo crisis in the state of Florida. So stay tuned for that upcoming. So this property was listed by a real estate agent. And when my client bought this property, she was going through a breakup and she unfortunately didn't hire us at the time to represent her during the closing.
First mistake.
Yes, first mistake, which will lead to the money pit, which this one was for sure. So she got an estimate, and basically, I think she paid probably at the time $150,000 for the condo, and it needed to remediate the mold. It probably cost about $100,000.
Oh my God, that sucks.
And so let's rewind a little bit, because through discovery, we found that not only did the seller know about it, and we're going to talk about that in a second.
The agent knew.
The agent knew. And so the beautiful thing about these types of cases is everybody has insurance. There's homeowners insurance. There's E&O insurance for the agent. There's E&O insurance for the brokerage. So let's just say we spun the wheel and we won the jackpot on this case because the agent left a voicemail for the seller that said the following. Hi, I'm here in your unit. There's 3 feet of standing water in your bathroom.
Oh.
What should I do? Guess what? We got a seller's disclosure statement. Oh. And guess what? It didn't have any flood on there. There's a specific spot on the seller's disclosure statement that says you have to disclose any floods.
Wow.
And another thing, in the line of our fire, there also was a home inspection done.
And the inspector didn't catch it?
Didn't catch any of it.
Well, here's the thing. In Florida, we have a lot of shady inspectors too. And I always suggest definitely try to be present during your inspection, actually.
Well, to give you a little, let's peek behind the curtain a little bit more. To be an inspector in the state of Florida, there's no education requirements. I am the least handy person in the world, and I could be a home inspector. All I need to do is pay an application fee to the state of Florida and make sure that I don't have any felonies stealing people's money, and I could be a home inspector.
No way.
Do you think you would really want me to be your home inspector?
No. Hell to the no. No. No.
So the good news is at least this home inspector had E&O insurance. So
oh my God.
Good old Stevie Wallace filed a lawsuit and under Johnson v. Davis because they failed to disclose a known defect. I sued the inspector, the agent, the brokerage firm, which was a large national brokerage firm. Thank you very much. And they all had insurance. And we went to mediation. We were able to settle it like that. And my client was made whole.
Oh, wow. That's awful.
So what is the lesson that we've learned in this situation?
Get a better inspector, hire the Wallace Law Group.
Yeah, but also hire, obviously we would love to have the business, but hire an attorney beforehand. If anything you're going to learn from this episode, it's hire an attorney beforehand. One of the idiosyncrasies about Florida versus where we're from, New York.
You don't need an attorney.
You do not need an attorney. In New York, in the form New York contract, it specifically says that you must have your attorney sign off on this contract.
Correct.
There is an addendum in Florida that says attorney review, but surprise, surprise, our real estate agent friends never include that addendum.
No.
And we've had situations where we've heard through the grapevine that many agents are saying, don't use an attorney. They just kill deals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've heard that from other agents saying, oh, no. Or the moment they find out, we're the closing agent and we're an attorney, they don't like it.
They don't.
They panic. They think we're going to kill the deal and stuff. But our job is to protect our client.
That's right. But one of the things that we do, which we kind of separates us from other law firms and title companies, is that, we have a lot of experience. And one of the things we pride ourselves on is being a deal maker, not a deal breaker.
Correct. We want the deal to work. Okay, realtors, we want the deal to work. We want you to get your commission, and we want you to send us business. That's kind of how we do business. It's mainly referral based.
We are referral based, and really we do represent individual parties in the transaction. But the bulk of the referrals that we get are repeat business from our referring real estate agents and lenders and accountants and of that nature. So again, we are not here to facilitate. And one of the things, because we've been doing this, even though she's very young. I'm old, but I look young because I don't drink or smoke. And I have a little tidbit that I want to talk to you about that I discovered on the way here, which it wouldn't be Attorneys Are Human too, unless you heard some of my old man nonsense.
Are you using Korean facial masks?
No, I don't drink. I don't smoke.
But those are great.
I drink a lot of water and I exercise, and that's why I look a lot younger than I am. So most importantly, what I was mentioning is the fact that we again are blessed with a lot of referrals.
Yeah.
And it really has to do with the fact that we anticipate problems before they happen. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is timeline. Timing is how long it takes to get a mortgage commitment, which we'll talk about a little bit later, how much it takes for inspections, how much it takes to get surveys. We do a lot of commercial deals, so I know how long it takes to get a land use change, a zoning change, how to get a site plan approved. So all of these things, one of the misconceptions, a lot of people that are inexperienced, especially because in Florida, the agents drive the transaction. Oftentimes, we're not even involved in the process until the contract's already signed. And so I'll get a call from a client, can you look at this contract? And I said, I can look at all I want, but both parties have already signed it.
It's already executed.
We certainly can try to get an addendum, but it's always good to get us involved at the start. Versus
You know what the problem with that is? That everyone want the property, that their main focus is, if I don't sign, someone else is going to come and swoop the deal.
That's right.
And, that's what the realtors are also sometimes advising. You got to sign, you got to send it out. We'll have an attorney review it later. Have your attorney review it later. And review it later, but it's already executed.
Right. I can review it and say, nice type. I love the Times New Roman on the contract, but it's already signed. So, based on that, it's very important that you get us involved as soon as possible. And again, our goal is, we're not here. There are some attorneys that want to squeeze every single penny out of a transaction. But again, we've been around for a very long time. I've been a lawyer in Palm Beach County since 2002. We've been together over 10 years, and she hasn't shot me or killed me yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. I mean, this morning could have been a situation, but so it's important to be, how much does it cost for somebody to review a contract? It's usually about anywhere from, depending on the complexity of the contract, could be anywhere from 1 hour of time to 5 or 10 hours of time if we're talking about a complicated commercial transaction. And keep in mind, this is for many people, this is the largest financial investment they make in their life.
Of course.
Wouldn't you want to spend a couple $100 or $1,000 to review that so you don't get the money pit like the movie?
Well, that's what I was going to say. A lot of people say, well, if it's not necessary for me to get an attorney, why am I going to get an attorney? I'm already spending so much money buying this property. But that's kind of the same answer. Because you're spending that much money buying the property, you want an attorney to review it. But I don't even think we are that expensive.
No,
I've
not
worked
really.
at firms that I do believe overcharge and are ridiculous.
We may have just left a firm that did that.
I experienced it myself.
Right.
So, it's something that I think, even if you're going to pay, an hour or two of your hourly fee, I think it's worth it to protect yourself.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not here to gouge you. I'm here to have you make a good financial decision, which is the most important thing that you can do. What are some other pitfalls that you've seen in your experiences?
So here's my favorite. I want to buy a house, FHA. I want to get all the incentives. I only want to put 3% down.
And could you just tell us a little bit about what FHA means and what the requirements are?
Well, for FHA is a first-time home buyers, and the great thing about FHA is that you are only putting a 3.5% down payment.
Yep.
So if you don't have a lot of money to buy a house, going FHA, it will really help you. Also, the credit requirements for FHA is only a 580 credit score.
Right, and you can have more, your debt to income ratio can be higher.
Correct. So it has perks. It has downfalls too, because the closing takes a lot longer.
And the federal government's involved.
Yeah, and the federal government's involved. There's just disclosures that you have to sign, and X, Y, and Z. But however, you're buying a home, first-time home buyer, you're putting less than what would be normal if it wasn't an FHA. And then they tell me this, I don't plan on living there. I'm going to rent it.
Yeah, the main requirement, the FHA put that in place for, in the definition, first-time home buyers. If you're going to live in the home, it's a requirement. You sign an affidavit at closing that says you intend to occupy this resident within 30 or 60 days from the closing.
Yes,
so
you are living in it.
Don't do that.
What happens if you don't live in it?
Well, you're signing under penalty of perjury, and I haven't seen it, but probably after we mention it on this podcast, we'll probably encounter it somewhere. The U.S. attorney has a very active mortgage fraud unit in the Southern District of Florida, which encompasses Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade County, where I know a lot of you are listening today. So I wouldn't do that. And, again, I'll use one of my favorite analogies for South Florida. It's a sunny place for shady people.
So I actually haven't seen it either, but I do know a lender who told me that they did witness this, and they did send someone to investigate. They found out that the buyers were not, and they foreclosed and made them actually pay back that loan.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. It was very ugly, they told me.
Oh my gosh.
So I never want to be in that situation. I don't think anyone should. If you're going to use the benefits of a first-time home buyer, live in your house.
Yeah. I mean, you can live in your house for a day or two and you can always sell it. It's just, as long as it's one day and it's your primary residence, that's something. And again, we're just here to help you and keep you out of the slammer, right?
Yeah. No, we don't want you to be in the slammer. But Steven, let me ask you a question. What's this Chinese drywall thing?
Oh, yeah. So this was something that was pretty popular in the late 2000s. And basically what happened was there was such a shortage of building material because during the go-go time before we had the downturn, basically 2003 to 2009, they ran out of domestic drywall because of the number of housing starts.
Oh, wow.
So what they did was they outsourced it to a couple of 4 or 5 different Chinese manufacturers, and they became defective, and a lot of people would get respiratory ailments, asthma, and some of the people really even got COPD and lung cancer.
But how do you know you have China? I mean, I the reason I ask is I always see it on the documents.
Right, it's a disclosure.
It's a disclosure,
right.
But I'm always like, well, what does it look like? What am I supposed to be looking for?
Well, you pull down the wallpaper.
Or is it going to say made in China?
Or
I don't know.
No, it does. It says Wuhan on it. It's got Chinese lettering on it.
China.
Right, it's a China.
No.
Yes, and then so there was a couple properties. In Boynton Beach where I lived, there was a few of them that were during that time frame, and they were Chinese drywall. And some of the builders went in and they replaced it once the new product was available. But then there was a couple builders that just went out of business. There was like 3 or 4 builders, like national home builders, that filed bankruptcy to get out of it because ultimately, whether or not, because it probably costs, like I'm trying to remember, because remember we had a couple bankruptcy clients that lived in that development in Boynton Beach. So it probably costs to remediate, meaning to replace the drywall, to get it out, to detoxify it, and that's definitely a money pit scenario there.
Oh, yeah.
It probably cost $200,000 or $300,000, and so some people were able to get some or all of that money back if the builder was still solvent.
Yeah.
But what happens is, and this is on the other side, generally speaking, when a client buys a project, they form LLCs, which are single purpose bankruptcy remote LLCs. And that's just covering that particular property. So even if they're a national home builder, they may have a separate entity that just owns that. So if they lose money on the project, there's no money to get at.
Correct. Oh, that's awful.
It is. But the one of the other things to keep in mind is, and it's supposed to be a disclosure on the MLS if there's Chinese drywall present, it's a stigma on the property that it really limits the value, the increase in the value of the house, because that particular project, HOA, and not that far from my house in Boynton Beach, they're beautiful homes, but the prices are depressed because of the Chinese drywall stigma.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to buy that.
And, we mentioned in the cold open that you can't stop laughing about is mold.
Ugh.
Now,
I don't know why I keep laughing.
There is a disclosure in the Florida contract about mold. Now, because we're a subtropical climate, mold does exist.
Yeah.
But the problem is, like, you can't leave lying water out. If you leave lying water out, there will be mold.
Yeah.
And here's another scenario that a lot of agents mistakenly tell people: how you get rid of mold. Bleach it. That's not how you get.
Yeah, that's not. You need a professional.
Just paint over it with Kills.
So the funny thing is, I have asthma. I suffer from asthma.
I do too.
You know that.
Yep.
But I know instantly if I walk into a place if there's mold, because my asthma only has triggered that way.
Yeah.
That, or I have like the flu, which I haven't had in ages. But yeah, I only have like a severe asthma attack. Remember in the office, I made you take off the carpet. I said, you got to remove the carpet. I can't work here like this.
Oh, yeah. No, I did immediately. And in our previous locale.
Yeah. Couldn't breathe.
I couldn't breathe either. Like, remember you got sick of so many times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's something not right in here.
Yeah, because I've never gotten sick like that.
When it's like a 70s shag carpet, it's never a good thing.
Yeah, no.
So note to self, any law firm, do not put shag carpet. And now, honestly, all joking aside, one of the popular things is vinyl flooring. You can get vinyl flooring. It's very inexpensive, and it looks like wood or it looks like tile, and it's a lot cheaper than that 70s shag commercial-grade tile. Commercial-grade carpet that you normally get.
Yeah, but going back to fixing mold, there is a mold spray that they sell at Home Depot. I mean, there's remedies to it. Bleach is not the remedy to it.
Or Kills.
Yeah, no. No, but just hire a professional.
Yep.
A professional can come and clean it and dry it and do whatever necessary.
Really, if there's black mold there, they're supposed to cut it out. You're supposed to cut the drywall out. And it's not, I've had a company come and do that before. They cut it out and then they put the drywall off. As long as it's not the entire house, then you can do that. But kills and bleach is not the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're in Florida though, like you said.
Another thing that we see a lot of people do, because especially if people are buying cash, they're trying to cut corners here and there. They try to buy a property and they don't get a survey.
Oh, well, big mistake.
Why do you need a survey? Well, a couple things. You want to know what your boundaries are of your land. You want to know if there, and generally speaking, we like to, especially on commercial transactions, we like to get all of the title exceptions plotted. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by title exceptions are when you buy a property, there's a variety of things that are recorded against the property of record. There could be a variety of different agreements. There could be easements. There can be restrictions on use. And so it's very important. That's another reason to hire an attorney, because we're very versed in once we get the title work back, we review everything, we comment on it. Like I have a $75 million deal that I'm working on right now, where my clients bought vacant land and they're selling it to a national home builder. And this is the third or fourth time where we've dealt with this national home builder, and I know exactly what they will object to, what they won't object to, how they will take title to the property. And there's a variety of things that I've dealt with before. There's been mineral rights where, believe it or not, even in Florida, there's a lot of, back in like the early 1900s when they didn't realize that Florida was dry, that you can't get oil out of it, there's mineral rights. And if you're selling a property that's going to be used for a home site, you don't want the company to come in and say, we're drilling in your backyard.
Of course not.
Right. And so we have to get those released. Those are certain things that we have to get released. There's also restrictions where you can't develop, like oftentimes, like we have clients that are buying vacant agricultural land, and there's a restriction that you can't use it for residential use. Anybody that's looking around, the only land that's really available, large patch of land, is out way west or way south, or there's very little that is available to large patch of land to redevelop east of 95 in South Florida. So you're dealing with agricultural land. So oftentimes what we have to do is we have to go back to the county or the city, and we have to get that restriction released and allow residential use or commercial use or whatever it is. So those are different things that we do, but that's why it's important. You need a survey, because I need to see where those easements are. Because like a prime example is, if you want to put a pool in your backyard.
Yeah, I was going to say a fence,
right?
Because that's always the issue too. Like, is this my area where I can put the fence?
So oftentimes there may be a Florida Power and Light easement in the middle of, back when cable was a thing, a cable easement, or back when you used to have landlines in your house,
dial-up
when
internet.
When there was a Bell South easement. So you can't put a pool in the middle of an easement. So that's why it's important to get a survey, whether you're paying cash or not. So those are things that we see a lot of. Also, if you're buying commercial property, not only do you need to get a survey, not only do we need to review your title, but we also need to see what the zoning of the property is. So I had a deal that I was supposed to close at the end of the year, and I was a smart person. I didn't spend the money before it hit my bank account.
Nope, we never do.
We don't. So the deal fell apart because we didn't have the proper zoning. My client was purchasing it, looking for a certain use. The seller's like, oh yeah, you can have the use. No, there's no doubt about it. The city, it took forever to get the zoning. We still don't have it, but we knew after going to the city a bunch of different times that we weren't able to get that use. And that's fallen apart like 2 or 3 times. Yeah. But I know that before we close, we need to look and verify what the zoning is. And it's very simple. All we do is we pay a couple $100 and we get a letter from the city saying, we propose in the application, we want to use it for a car wash, let's say.
Correct.
And the city will send me a letter back saying, yes, you can do a car wash. If that's the case, and especially if you have a lender, a lender's not going to close unless they have that zoning letter.
Well, speaking for me, which I'm kind of working on this commercial deal with Michael, and it's commercial, but they want to rezone it for residential. They want it to be a residential building. Is that something that we can do?
Oh, absolutely. We do that all the time for clients. I mean, I've done it in most.
And how long would that take?
I mean, generally speaking, if you're looking to change the use, you have to change the comprehensive plan amendment. You have to get a land use change. You may have to get a zoning change depending upon it. So it's generally anywhere from 12 to 24 months. It's a process. And oftentimes, again, a good reason to use an attorney is because if we're representing a buyer, we would put a contingency in the contract saying, we're not going to close until we get a change that allows this use.
Correct.
Per se. And if for some reason we go through all the process and the city or the county or both of them says, no, you can't do that, we put a provision in the contract where our client's able to get their money back.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
so you're getting all sorts of protections by using an attorney.
Right. The other thing that, especially if we're dealing with a commercial transaction, we want to make sure that we do an environmental test. And it's called, the term of art is called a phase 1.
So that was my next question, right? Because I know that from our past experience, I think we sold something that used to be a gas station.
Yep.
And there was all this environmental talk.
Yep.
So elaborate a little bit on that.
Sure. So what we do, it's called the initial test, and you engage an environmental engineer where basically it's called a phase 1, and they look and see, and they go through the federal and the state databases to see if there's any spills. And I've had experience in where clients buying property where there have been environmental issues. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But a phase 1 says this is where there's been spills. This is where there's been reported cases. It also tells you with gas stations, one of the issues is there's underground fuel storage tanks. And so depending upon the technology, if it's a single layer tank, sometimes depending upon the age,
They can be removed.
It rusts and it leaks.
Oh.
And so ultimately, that's a situation where there's a spill. But certainly, depending upon what type of project you're going to build, you would go in and you'd have a company do it. It's very expensive, but you have to get the underground storage tanks removed.
Oh, wow.
And properly under federal and Florida guidelines.
Wow.
And so we see it a lot because it used to be, if you're driving down the street, every hard corner, meaning every major intersection, north, south, east, west, you could look at 4 corners and there would be a gas station.
Correct.
And then the custom would be, that was the custom for a while. And then you would see a bank for every hard corner.
Yes.
Then you'd see a Walgreens or a CVS at every hard corner.
Or remember Genovese?
Yes.
I'm that old.
Right. Genovese, I would call it. But I was always wondering if there was a tie to the mob or not. But
No.
Okay, well, in my mind, in my 20-year-old mind, that's what I thought.
Okay.
So generally, we're seeing a lot of gas. We saw a big push maybe 4 or 5 years ago where certain companies like Wawa would come in and they would buy every hard corner. And now we're seeing that a lot of Walgreens and CVSs are being repurposed. So it just goes with trends, but environmental issues and zoning are very, very important when you're looking to repurpose different properties.
Okay. And real quick, because I know we mentioned the commitment period, and I want to talk about that a little bit and why that's important.
Sure.
So,
of course, we will do that, but after that, you promise me we can get into some pop culture and silliness, because that's really what I'm interested in, but I want to help our viewers out there. So in a contract, there's a financing contingency. There can or can't be. So oftentimes when there's a competition for a property, even though a buyer may want to get financing, they may say it's a cash deal. So if it's a cash deal and you want to get financing and the time passes and you don't get a commitment or you're not able to get financing, you're SOL. Because even though you want to get financing, if it says a cash deal, it doesn't matter. You're out of luck. So what we always try to do is we try to get a financing contingency, and especially on a residential deal. And when we're dealing with conventional lending, meaning non-FHA, which is usually 5% or more down, timing wise, I like to always have a 30-day period to get a commitment. Now, agents will argue with me, I had a lender that did it in 10. Okay, that's great.
yeah, they all say that.
But that's an exception to the rule. So 20 or 30 days for a conventional. And if we're doing FHA, which takes longer because the government's involved, I usually don't want to do any less than 30, but if I can get 45 days, that's much better. But then an agent will say, well, I got one done in 10.
I push for 45 no matter what.
So what that means is you have a certain time frame between the contract date and day 45 to get a letter from the lender saying you're approved. And that's a commitment, a loan commitment saying, I will lend you. Now, the commitment you get isn't going to be a blanket commitment.
No.
It's called a conditional commitment. It's going to say, and I've reviewed your employment, which we talked about earlier, so don't quit your job beforehand. I've reviewed your pay, so your credit, and also your bank statements, because again, that verified and seasoned money. And we see so many deals where the day of closing, we have to extend it or it falls apart because one of those items hasn't been occurred. But once you get that commitment, the lender's saying that if you meet XYZ, then you're able to, we will lend you at closing. So if you're not, let's say day 44 comes and we don't get it. We always try to, and this is something agents don't pay attention to. They're like, we're going to extend the closing. Okay, that's great. You can extend the closing, but what if you never get the loan commitment? Correct. I want to extend that commitment period also. That's very important.
Correct, because it's two different things.
That's right.
Okay. Well, good to know. Now, you want some pop culture? I think they're about to cancel TikTok.
My 13-year-old and 9-year-old will go kill each other. So I want to just say something, and we talked about this during our election period. I have to tell you that the President-elect Trump and his cronies and all of his people, they did such an amazing job getting the youngins on TikTok, on Instagram. You would never think in a million years that he would do, but they dominated. And podcasts, YouTube. My son was telling me all the great things about the president-elect. And I'm like, where are you finding all this stuff?
TikTok.
He's like, he's so amazing on TikTok.
Where all the information is.
Well, I will tell you, though, you can learn a lot about life on TikTok. And I love that.
And dance moves.
I love the Costco guy. So I got to tell you, I love the, and I met, we were at a, surprise, we were at a wrestling match in Boca Raton. And Ethan and I met the Costco guy.
No way.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. Well, they want to cancel TikTok.
I mean, he said, I've heard Trump, because TikTok got him elected. He's not going to, I mean, I know Biden wants to, because Biden knows that he did, that cost him the election.
Yeah. You know what it is? I think the youth now, their information source, they're like, they don't watch the news.
No, I don't watch the news either.
They actually rarely watch TV now also. They're just on TikTok.
Everything's on demand. They want TikTok. Yes. They want Instagram. They don't even really look at Instagram.
Streaming.
And streaming, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's me. I want to stream and I don't want commercials.
Me too. I agree with that.
But then I miss the commercials.
I don't miss the commercials.
I do. Sometimes I'm like, oh, man, someone's talking about this commercial. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, but, the commercials are horrible. Like, I'm watching, like, a kid show, and somebody's talking about their HIV medicine.
Oh, I hate those commercials.
No, I know, but they're all on. We're watching it. And Ethan and I and Hannah, we're watching it. Excuse me. And I'm just like, this is horrible. They're like, if you take this medicine, your hair is going to be on fire, and you're going to poop fire.
Just don't say that.
But that's what it all says.
No.
And there's like people that are like in a rowboat, and they're like my lower area's on fire. I need to take this medicine.
What's going on? I hate them because they're so long. And they're like, yeah, it'll cure your headache, but then the side effects are diarrhea, vomiting, indigestion, upset stomach, depression, suicidal thoughts. And it's just like, okay, I'll just stay with the headache.
So, talking about bad things that you millennials do to each other. So I have to add today. So I'm in the gas station getting some caffeine, because that's my drug. And there's this guy in front of me, and he's got like a weightlifting shirt on, and he's like, I want Zyn or Zello. And I'm just like, and he was right in front of me. I'm like, what are you getting? And it's like in this like pouch. And I'm like, and he's like, oh, it gets me through a hard day at work. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, is it like dip or chewing tobacco? He's like, kinda, but it gets me. That's not what he talked. But I think if I'm talking about chewing tobacco or dip.
Why does he sound like
right? So this is for this is the benefit for my high school friends out there. So we're driving in high school. We're going to our soccer game, and we're in our van to go to the soccer. And we played all these like rural plays. So I'm in the back because I was a defender. So the defender sat in the back. And I'm in the back, and I'm not going to name the person, but we're in the back, and he's like our starting, like one of our star defenders. and he's in the back and he's chewing tobacco and dipping in a Coke can. And I'm like, I'm looking at him, I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Ew, that just sounds so gross.
And so that's what I think of when this guy in front of me. But I guess the technology's gotten so much better. He's like, it's not really dip, but I put it in the side of my mouth and it gets me through a hard day. So then I look at the lady who's behind there and she's South American. And I'm like, I look at her and we both look at each other like, what the F?
Yeah.
And then she's like, I don't think his girlfriend wants him to kiss him. And I said, I don't think so either. But those are the things that show that we really are attorneys are human too, because these are the things that I think about.
Yeah, no, and that's so gross. I mean, his girlfriend definitely doesn't want to kiss him. He's probably gonna have some type of mouth cancer. Gross. It's
right.
just gross.
That's what happened to legendary baseball player Tony Gwynn. He died of mouth cancer. And listen, that's why the kids these days they do what I used to do when I played Little League.
Eat Big League Chew.
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, I don't know why, but it's just something that I feel like you have to do if you're playing dodgeball.
Yes.
Or kickball.
Yeah.
Or baseball.
That Big League Chew though it's like red and then it's in like a mound of sugar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you know they have other flavors now?
I only think
they have the
pink.
apple and the purple.
Okay, good to know. Mm-hmm. Good to know. Mm-hmm. So let's go to one more bit of pop culture, and then you can take us home with the lightning round.
Okay. Talk to me about former President Carter passed away.
So this is what I knew about former President Carter.
What did you know?
Up. He was a peanut farmer.
He loved his wife.
He liked pro wrestling.
Did he?
Which was a good spot in my heart.
Okay.
And he founded Habitat for Humanity.
I actually did not know that.
And he's a very religious man. Those are the things that I knew. But I was like very little when he was, and you were not even a speckle in your parents' eye at the time.
I was a thought.
Not even a thought. So I know that just he probably didn't have the most successful presidency. I remember that there were long lines to get gas.
Oh,
and
wow.
there was a war with Iran that we almost got into because of that. And a lot of inflation. Those are the things I remember.
Well, we have a lot of inflation now.
We do. So
what's changed?
Not much over the 40 year or the 50 years since he was the president. But the one thing I'll tell you is when he got out of office, he was very young, so he was around for a very long time. And I always looked at him as a statesman. I always saw him when they had different gatherings of the presidents, and it seemed like he was pretty well received. Yeah,
I mean, listen, he made it to 100. God bless him, and I think that there's a lot to respect and admire for someone who not just dedicated a part of their life to being the president of this country, but I like their love story. I like that he says that he loved his wife so much. And I'm pretty sure when she passed, it was really hard for him.
I mean, she passed probably a year or two ago, and you knew that oftentimes what we see is if one spouse, especially if spouses have been together a very long time, if one spouse passes, the other one passes within like a year or two, especially if they're elderly.
Yeah, that's very
sad. Which is sad.
Yeah.
We don't do sad on Attorney Human 2, though.
I know, but President Carter was an icon.
Yeah, I agree.
This is not sad. This is like you're joining with your wife, and this is like a happy moment, I think. So, yeah, I'm very proud of how everything looked and turned out, and the respect that he got from everyone. But I learned something because I didn't know that he founded Habitat for Humanity.
See, that's what you learn on Attorneys Are Human Too.
You get an education. Okay,
let's go to the lightning round.
Okay, I have a lightning round question.
Okay.
Rihanna or Taylor Swift?
Oh, definitely Tay-Tay.
Really? I thought you were going to go Rihanna.
I like diamonds, but I have to tell you that in the car every day, my 9-year-old serenades me. It's always on repeat, the Taylor Swift.
Okay. The Orange Bowl or the Rose Bowl?
I have to go Orange Bowl because it's in Miami.
Okay. And what's your favorite college football team?
Well,
that is not your own.
Not my own.
Yes, not your
Okay,
own.
not the Syracuse Orange is what you're telling me.
No, it can't. I already know that's a default. I think we all know that.
Yeah, I mean, there's two teams that I've liked based on the fact that where I've lived. Like I mean, Miami the Miami Hurricanes is our hometown team, so I usually support the Hurricanes. Although Syracuse did beat them at the end of the season and knocked them out of the bowl playoff, which was pretty sweet. But I also like Texas because they're doo-doo orange. That's their color, which is bird orange, and it's like hook 'em horn. So they're actually playing tonight, and hopefully they'll take home the championship.
Okay.
And also one of my favorite actors who is not a good actor is Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, he's a good actor. What are you talking about?
He's a good actor.
He's a great actor.
I mean, I just remember him in Dazed and Confused when he's like,
that's what
good.
You're basing
That's how I base it on.
He's such a great actor.
So he's
now.
a Texas alum, and he was hired.
He moved back to Texas.
Right, he was hired to be like their like spokesman, and he's always on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And the other reason why I like Texas is because they come out to Back in Black, which I like a lot, and Thunderstruck, which is I torture my middle school basketball team by listening to it. They're like, "What is this noise that's hurting our ears?"
What are they? They're like generation alpha?
Right. And like I was playing Biggie, which we talked about in our last episode.
They were like, who is that?
They was like, who's that? I go, how do you like that hip hop, which I don't even understand, which is like all curse words with a little bit of beat?
Listen, we're going to have another episode on hip hop again.
We will. And we may have to bring Cy Lawson in.
Yes, just the changes in music. Because no comprendo. I don't know what's happening anymore. I'm old now.
Well, I'm definitely old. So we've learned a lot today in the money pit, what not to do when you're buying real estate. And again, we are pouring our hearts out to you. We've gotten such a great response to everybody. So if you could please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. Leave us some comments because that'll help us increase in the Apple and Spotify podcast algorithms.
Yeah. Also reach out to us. Let us know if you have any questions or anything that we can help you with, so that
you can
we can
text us in the show notes.
Yeah.
And any ideas for any future episodes, we're all ears. Well, thank you so much. And until next time, I'm Steve Wallace.
And I'm Celena Muzic. Thank you for listening to Attorneys Are Human Too. Remember, give us a 5-star review and follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever you get your digital content.